Welcome back to the Living in Wichita, Kansas channel. So today we're talking about insurance, some roofing stuff, how it applies to insurance, and we'll talk to some lenders, inspector, and how insurance is affecting stuff these days in 2024. So big deal these days with ever increasing costs, and as we get into 2024, we've been seeing big changes for years in regards specifically with roof replacements. So I wanted to give you the lowdown from a recent panel that spoke to us, our offices, and it included a rep from Strata. They're an insurance brokerage, so they work with, he said, about 25-ish or so carriers around town. We spoke with a roofer, inspector, and a lender to kind of round out the panel discussion on insurance. The speaker, like I said, was from Strata Insurance Brokerage, very knowledgeable about all things insurance and across the state. So he kind of give us the overview of why rates are increasing extraordinarily. So he was able to speak about the changes, what's happening across the USA, the perspective, and we'll get into that, and how it affects us in Wichita as well. With that, first off, he mentioned you'll probably have seen that insurance rates are on the way up, like we discussed, because they are losing money. To give some numbers, here is what he shared. In 2001, about 20-ish years ago, there was about a $1,500 premium for auto and home insurance. In 2019, $2,500 in auto and home insurance premiums. And then in 2024, we are at $4,800 in insurance premiums. So while it took 18 years to double that, it only took the next 5 years to double. And with post-COVID, he says he expects to see rates, 60 to 100% rate increase in the next 5 years. So now let's go into some more statistics of what's affecting all this increase. In 2022, there were 18 storms. In 2023, there was 28 storms totaling a payout of like $33 billion, which was $9 billion more than 2022 with 10 more storms. And there was a loss of $1 billion. And then going back to 2015, there was a total written of $600 billion. And then 2025, so another 10 years later, we are at 1.2 trillion that it took to double what was written back in 2015. Basically, he's saying expect insurance to double in the next 5 years. As a realtor, of course, we mostly deal with roof replacements in our town of Wichita. We do have a lot of hailstorms, a good amount. And once in a blue moon, we do have a tornado. In 2022, we did have the Andover, Kansas tornado. It's about 20 minutes out of, let's say, downtown Wichita. To the buyer, the higher insurance cost basically affects your monthly payment, which is why we're talking about that in real estate. Unless you're a cash buyer and elect not to have insurance, you pretty much, with a lender, you are required to have insurance. They want to definitely protect their investment from the lender side. Don't have insurance and you own the home outright or something, yeah, you're taking a risk, but sometimes it's a matter of balancing that risk for those professional, let's say, investment people and whatnot. Okay, let's head into roofs now. Insurance companies are not replacing roofs like we saw pre-COVID. And I'm going to say I started to see it in about 2019, so especially with one carrier. I know we had heard from the roofers that they were starting to fight this one carrier, and I had a listing that needed a roof replacement. And at the time, they replaced the gutters and everything but the roof. It was, so we're like, what's going on? So there was definitely a change starting then. And of course, like the previous statistics I gave you, it's completely understandable. If you're a buyer looking at a home, be sure to take the roof into effect as it's a costly item. The insurance rep had said to be sure to let our sellers, know that they may need to be replacing a roof if it's 10 years old, as the insurance carriers may not cover it. Meaning when a buyer comes in, puts an offer on your house, they're going to need, because most of them have lenders, they're going to need an insurance carrier to cover it. It's kind of like he's saying, let your sellers know. So if you're a seller out there looking to sell your house, if it's over 10 years old, you might have to be replacing it. Yes, it's always negotiable, but just kind of start with that as an expectation. He said they are not writing policies for over 10 years. He said, and I had a discussion with my carrier, and they had said something about 15, they were going to start depreciating significantly, maybe a little bit more, but that seems, I bet you it's going to 10 years. And he's saying that. So he did make a good point that insurance is no longer a homeowner maintenance item. And I get what he means by this. I was surprised with some roofs that were replaced in the past. Specifically, I had one that had a 20-year-old roof, and it got covered because I had told my sellers, just be ready, this is probably not going to get covered unless they can connect the hailstorm to it, and it did. So that's what he's meaning. Really, in this case scenario, I mean, if you have a 20-year-old roof, that's a maintenance item. I mean, home ownership isn't cheap. Roof probably one of the dollar stuff, owning a home. So that's what he meant. He's like, it's no back onto the homeowner's plate of a maintenance item. So, and during this discussion, I did try to get the insurance broker to give me a ballpark percentage number that we can estimate online mortgage calculators. And he really couldn't. I kept pressing him until he finally said, fine, 2%. And I checked it out after. I will say we're somewhere between 1% to 2%. Like the home I just bought's a tad over 1%. My rental that I turned to a rental is at 2%. That's a lender's policy, so I think they're a little bit more expensive. And this is in 2024. I also had put a house under contract under the $200 mark, and it was a good deal under 1%. Again, that's why he couldn't really answer it, but I'd say for the general rule of thumb, just look at like between 1% to 2%, maybe throw it at 1.5 to be on the conservative side. I know why he didn't want to give me a general number, but there you go for just several that I had looked at just recently in my own houses. Andover, Kansas, which is higher in taxes, be closer to like 1.5%. I typically have out-of-state buyers ask me this question over the years, so I always need that general idea of what to put in. And of course, you can always reach out to me for more specifics. Online mortgage calculator, this number should kind of work. Err on the side of caution, use 1.5% like I mentioned. The insurance guy and the roofing rep said to get impact-resistant shingles, as some insurance companies will offer discounts. So again, you're trying to save as much money as you can with insurance since they just keep going up and up. Recommendation was, and they both agreed, it's class 4 impact resistant shingle. I think one said like an asphalt shingle or something like that. Again, I'm just regurgitating what the experts told us. A client of mine recently told me, that he was excited. He had learned that some insurance companies give you a discount on homeowner premiums for hail resistant shingles. He said, I'm using his words in this little recap. So this lines up with what the insurance broker said and the roofer said. So my client said he saved a lot of money. For him, he was guessing between $300 and $500 to his recollection. He didn't look it up when we were talking, but I assume he was referring to over a year's period. But definitely talk to your providers about that. And he said the insurance companies would only accept specific manufactured brands. The insurance broker on the panel, he did say that it was about like $1,000 or $1,500 more for impact resistant shingles, and it does withstand hail and foreign objects better. But both really encouraged this, the roofer rep and the insurance rep, and they both were agreeing on what they were saying. So, and basically the roofer said, put on the best roof within your budget, as insurance may not be there when you need it. They're getting all that stuff happen. You could say they're getting very, very strict with what they are going to cover. It's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So he also said, like I mentioned, not all carriers provide a discount, so be sure to ask. I also have another buyer who is an insurance agent, and we actually were just looking at homes her parents just bought. And her parents got a deduction in 2024 because she was able to look it up and saw that that particular house, who happened to be insured with their company, did have class 4 impact shingles. So she knew right from the get-go. Of course, she's in the industry. So just if you're a buyer, make sure you look into that. Otherwise you're going to be getting insurance where you possibly could have deduction, but you're not because you don't ask about it. So just kind of keep that in mind. Again, we're just trying to save you money with insurance rates going out of control and expected to continue to go up. So the insurance rep had said that homes have rap sheets, so where carriers can look up houses and what claims that they have on them. Carriers will be very picky now on who they insure, based on the losses that the industry has sustained the last year. And so the insurance broker went on to say, since builders haven't built much over the last decade, I know I've done videos on that, over the last decade, majority of homes on sale are about 70 years old. So many more claims will be coming about these days just due to that. Of course, builders are out building like crazy because we need more inventory. But so he's right. Yeah, majority of houses right now are older. They're, as I call them, resale homes. He was saying that basically insurance can start knocking people out of the market, with the insurance so much higher, mortgage payments so much higher. The early stage first-time home buyers can be knocked out unless you have equity built up and can, afford a little bit more. So you can tell we've seen a lot going on in the insurance these last few years. Have heard that insurance companies are also pulling out of, I've heard Florida, and he particularly, specifically mentioned, I should say, State Farm pulled out of California. So that was interesting. I heard State Farm, I think, was still in Florida, or have pulled out of Florida. And he said homeowners are having issues, even in California, selling homes because the buyers cannot insure them. So I don't know much more about that. I just regurgitating what he had said. So that was interesting. Trees are becoming a bigger deal. I've heard this a bunch over the past year, actually. So I wasn't surprised he brought it up. They're a big issue with roofs. So whether you're selling or buying, you just be sure to have your trees trimmed. Get them not hanging over a roof. I got the feeling if an insurance adjuster try to have something covered, or try not to have something covered if they saw trees hanging over a roof. That's kind of my interpretation of what the experts were saying. And if you're buying a home and can ask for repairs, this would be a good one to ask for if trees are over a garage or home. I know once we get into some multiple offer situations again, this market, you won't be able to ask for that stuff, but just whether you're buying a house, whether you have a house, just start hiring those tree folks to come out and, keep those trees trimmed. So roofing deductibles. Looks like roofers are not absorbing deductibles anymore. So my rental was re-roofed in 2009. The entire neighborhood it was due to a hailstorm. So that was a pretty easy one. It's when everybody flies into the state, all the people from other states come in because hailstorm, there's so much roofs to do that first. But Strata said, this is a thing of the past. He said, even back then they were cutting quarters in order to absorb that. So if a roofer says they'll absorb a $5,000 deductible, he said to run. As serious corners would be cut in the re-roofing of your house. Some lenders on the panel just kind of throwing in some 2 cents about this as well. And there are a few pieces of advice that the lender suggested for buyers to put less of a down payment, and keep more of their money in like a reserve account to account for the increasing home costs and maintenance. Because a lot more of this insurance stuff is going to be falling on the homeowner's plate, as you can kind of tell from the stats I've provided in this video so far. And then there was an inspector on the panel, and his take on insurance, he also provided a few nuggets that were interesting to hear. Basically, always get an inspection for new construction. Things can be missed, like insulation in an attic. Some builders I've had blue tape walkthroughs for, others not. So he just said, be sure to get an inspector to walk through it, and I would agree with that. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but also you can kind of pinpoint and be picky about stuff and have tell the builder to fix that stuff anyway. So it's just always a good thing to do. People don't. So we have this questions, and it's always asked on our internal Facebook page. Funny enough, it's just better to get that third-party inspector to call out any issues that might arise. I hear him say that if a home is older than 1970, to be sure to get a sewer scope done. I always have buyers in older neighborhoods conduct a sewer scope, or highly recommend it. Never had like a date put on it, so I like hearing that he said 1970. He said even beyond that, but that was just kind of a date that he thought was like almost like, yeah, you definitely want one. My buyers in the last few years have had sewers replaced. I've had a couple, I think, just last year alone. I literally last week had a sewer scope inspection done, and it's about $175. So definitely well worth it, especially because, like I said, the last couple I had a couple sewers replaced. Orangeburg was one of them, and he mentioned that like it's horrible, terrible. It's defective. That got replaced. So the sellers agreed, to replace both of those on their dime. Trying to kick back a little bit, but it got done. And then just a few more comments from the lenders as we conclude this video. Basically, they said interest rates have increased. Of course, we know that. But he reiterated what us agents are already saying and posting on social media, that we are still expecting a buyer frenzy as soon as the rates go down, and we still have low inventory. Imagine, so what low inventory does, multiple offers, everyone has to keep increasing the price, win the bidding war. So, and last I've seen, the latest is June is the expected time frame of when they're expecting kind of rates to creep down from what they've heard from the Fed. So anyway, there we have it. Lots of information on why the insurance is going out of control, increasing, and some information on roofs, a little bit of lender perspective, a little bit of inspector perspective. So I hope you got some great information, a couple of nuggets out of this video. Give me a call. I'm only a phone call away. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel, get more up-to-date information on buying or selling homes in Wichita, Kansas. So hey, thanks for watching. Have a great day.